Mark Twain, his wife Levy, and daughter Clara continued on the journey from Elmira to Cleveland, his first stop in his around-the-world lecture tour. With them was Major Pond and his wife. The railway line from Salamanca to Dunkirk began as a 6-foot gauge track in 1850 as part of the New York and Erie Railroad. The entire system was converted to a standard gauge track in 1880, and by 1895 was known as the Erie Railroad. This leg of the journey passed by Little Valley, New Albion, Cattaraugus, Persia, and Dayton, then past Perrysburg, Forestville, Sheridan, and on into Dunkirk. Dunkirk had been a terminus for the line, but this was quickly changed to Buffalo. Most of this route lies within Cattaraugus County. The name comes from a Seneca word for bad-smelling banks, the smell of natural gas leaking from rock seams. Prior to the American Revolutionary War, most of the area was deemed off-limits to European expansion, declared a Indian reserve in the British Treaty of Fort Stanwix. After the war, most of the Iroquois, as loyalists, went north into Ontario. The Treaty of Canandaigua in 1794 canceled what was left of native titles, except for a few reservations, two of which are at least partially within this county. I occasionally wonder how land ownership was first established. At least in this region, this treaty is the starting point. The treaty established peace and friendship between the United States and the Six Nations, and affirmed the Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois, land rights in the state of New York, and boundaries established by the Phelps and Gorham Purchase of 1788. This was the second diplomatic agreement ever entered into by the United States government. The Phelps and Gorham Purchase, 6 million acres in western New York, purchased from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for $1 million. Phelps and Gorham tried to negotiate with the Seneca Nation for clear title, but were only able to obtain such for land east of the Genesee River, forcing them to default and sell the rest to Robert Morris of Philadelphia, the richest man in America, and a signatory of the Declaration of Independence. He had been born in Liverpool. Morris gave title to the Holland Land Company after negotiating with the Indians. This is the Treaty of Big Tree. The Holland Land Company was actually a syndicate of 13 Dutch investors from Amsterdam, and they never came to this country. Aliens were forbidden to hold land within the United States, so they used trustees. They had hoped to sell it off quickly, but were forced to make improvements such as roads and canals to make the land attractive to settlers. They sold off the last of their holdings by 1840, and the syndicate was fully dissolved by 1846. Dayton, New York. The Erie Railroad passes through the northeastern part of the town along the divide of the streams in this section, and has a station at Dayton Village. This is on the summit between the Conewango, and the Cattaraugus valleys. And the elevation is more than 1,000 feet above the lake at Dunkirk. In July of 1874, the Buffalo and Jamestown, now Buffalo and Southwestern Railroad, was completed through Dayton. Its course is nearly described by a line passing diagonally through the town from the northeast to the southwest corner. At Dayton Village, it passes through a tunnel about 30 feet below the roadbed of the Erie. There's no transfer station associated with this crossing except by means of a backtrack from the main line of the Buffalo and Southwestern Railroad, a quarter of a mile from the Erie station. Perrysburg was named for Admiral Perry. It was formed in 1814, originally called Perry. In 1818, Elkdale was split off and the name was changed to Perrysburg. All that part of Cattaraugus County, situated west of the east boundary line of the 7th range of townships in the said Holland Company's land, shall from and after the day preceding the first Tuesday of April next be erected into a separate town by the name of Perry. Smith Mills, a hamlet in the eastern part of the town. Forestville is a village near the west town line and in the southwest part of Hanover. The town of Sheridan was created in 1827 from part of Hanover and Pomfret. '51 was a big year for Dunkirk, New York. The New York and Erie Railroad was completed, the last tie being laid in April. The railroad was opened on May 14th when a train made half of the journey from the Hudson River to Dunkirk. Continuing the next day, the train arrived in Dunkirk with Charles Sherman, a Dunkirk resident, as engineer for the second half of the trip. The railroad was 445 1/2 miles long with wide gauge tracks, 6 feet in width. This was the longest railroad then in existence and the first from the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes. Many notables made the trip, including President Fillmore and his cabinet, Daniel Webster, Seward, and Douglas, etc. The entire railroad project had cost $23,500,000, and great predictions were made for the development of the country along its route. Passenger and freight service on a regular basis started May 19th. Later in the year, the telegraphic system of dispatching trains was adopted. The train was in 2 sections with a total of 12 cars. Fireworks and bonfires added to the festivities. Several railroads were in existence, namely the Baltimore and Ohio, the Camden and Amboy, the Mohawk and Hudson, a branch of the Delaware and Hudson, and others, all of them much shorter than the New York and Erie.